Hello everyone, back tuning into today's first video. So we're going to have a look at whether next week's 10 days for today's first video, which takes us to around the 26th of May. We'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensembles. They run to around a couple of weeks, and we'll have a look at Beijing Climate Centre for the next 40 days as well. It's going to be jam-packed with all of the regular features. I hope you'll find it interesting and informative. We'll have the third update for the late spring bank holiday weekend coming up for you this evening. Now, before we do anything else, I'm going to say a big thank you to our latest donor. So I've had a donation for Gazworthies from Claire James. A big thank you to Claire James for becoming the latest donor for Gazworthies. That is very, very kind and generous of you, Claire, for doing that. So a big, big thank you to Claire James for becoming our latest donor. If you would like to become a donor for Gazworthies, then all you need to do is come to the Gazworthies PayPal page, sign into your PayPal account, and then you can send a donation to Gazworthies. And by doing that, you're helping us to pay for our website, you're helping us to keep content online. You'll get a mention in videos as long as you want one. If you would rather stay anonymous, then just leave a little note with your donation telling us that you would rather not get a mention in video. But otherwise, we'll give you a shout out and we'll say a big, big thank you for doing that. And again, big, big thank you to Claire James for her donation. Alternatively, though, you can become a patron for Gazworthies. So if you would like to become a patron of Gazworthies, all you need to do, come to the Gazworthies patron page, sign up for a patron account, and being given an ongoing monthly donation from anything from $1 a month upwards to Gazworthies. By doing that, you're becoming a patron for Gazworthies. We've got 60 patrons so far, so hello and a big thank you to all of our 60 patrons. Hope you're enjoying the videos that we're doing at the moment at Gazworthies and all of the other content. You're helping us to pay for the website, helping us to keep content online, so a big, big thank you to all of our patrons. Big thank you to all of our donors, and special thank you to Claire James for your donation. Thanks so much, Claire, for doing that. Right, we're going to start off with the Central England temperature event. So we're halfway through the month, and we're currently sitting at 9.8 with the CT from Hadley. That's where we are right now, 9.8. An anomaly below average, 0.8 degrees below average. So that's nearly 1 degree below the 61 to 1990 temperature average. That's provisional up to yesterday, up to the 15th of May. Now, this may tick up a little bit over the next few days, but I think we could be on course. We could be on course for our first below average CT for a very, very long time. I have to go back to last year to find a below average CT. I'm not sure which month it was. Possibly, it might have been November or maybe September, or maybe even further back before that. You might even have to go back to last spring. When we have beast from years, might have to go back to March even. Not sure, so I'm sure someone will let me know in the comments. But it certainly is a very long time since it's had a below average Central England temperature. This could be our first month, but I think we will tick this up a bit over the next few days. Certainly isn't going to be a particularly above average CT month though. If it does tick up, it will probably only get towards average really by the time we get through to month's end. So certainly a cooler month than we've had for quite a long time. The CT through this year so far has been quite interesting. So January came out about average, almost bang on the 61 to 1990 temperature average, but February was exceptionally warm, 6.7, 3 degrees above average. March, 7.8, nearly 2 degrees above average. April, 9.1, around 1 degree above average. And now we go to May, which is around a degree below average. So you see me shaving off more and more of the CT as we've gone through, or shaving off more of the anomaly, I should say, from the CT as we've been going month by month through the first half of this year. That peak was reached in February. Will be interesting to see where we come out for May. It's not inconceivable this will be our first colder or cooler than average month. interesting times ahead. The reason it's been such a cool first half to May is clearly shown by the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from Penn State University for the next week to 10 days. So we've got the ECMWF here on the top and the GFS is on the bottom. So 500 millibars is an area in the atmosphere, high pressure, low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream. Red is extrapolating to high pressure, blue to low pressure. You see all of this red that the ECMWF has in the 7 to 10 day time frame over Greenland and then back into the North Pole. That's blocking areas of high pressure over Greenland and backing up into the North Pole. And because we've got that blocking, then we are forcing cool air out of the pole and down into northern or western parts of Europe. So that's the reason. It's a pattern that we've had all month, really. It looks like it's going on for next week to 10 days if the ECM is right. And that's the reason it's been quite a cool first half to May. There is a trough of below average heights in the Atlantic. At the moment, we're managing to avoid rolling that in from off the Atlantic, but the longer this blocking goes on for over the North Pole, the longer this high pressure sits there over the pole and Greenland, the greater the risk that eventually we're going to start to roll in low pressure from off the Atlantic and possibly even stick up a trough over the top of the UK underneath that blocking. So if we just stick up a trough through here and have the jet stream doing something like that, then we will go into a very cool and very unsettled, potentially even very wet pattern as we get in towards the summer. At the moment, no evidence of that, but the longer this blocking goes on, the greater the risk that that could happen. Now, the GFS is very similar, but it has one important difference. So it's got the blocking across Greenland in the week to 10 day time frame, lots of high pressure still up there. It's got the low pressure in the Atlantic, but one difference is that it has above average heights around Spain and Portugal, and so that just leaves us perhaps bringing in a slightly milder or maybe slightly warmer southwesterly flow. But what could happen with this is that the two ridges could get together. So this ridge around Spain and Portugal could go into the Atlantic and head up to this ridge around Greenland and Iceland. If that happens, then you could get a mid-Atlantic ridge setting up. And if we get a mid-Atlantic ridge setting up, we will sort of pull in a northerly wind rather like that, with high pressure sitting in the middle of the Atlantic. We could do something like that. If we do, then this trough over the northern Scandinavia, that might back westwards, and we could find ourselves going into a cool and potentially quite unsettled pattern from the northeast. But just going to wait and see where this is going. But certainly it does look as though this blocking signal that we have throughout May so far, this blocking signal looks like it's going to carry on in the next week to 10 days. And that's taking us more or less to the end of the month, of course. Now, in the more immediate future, we will be seeing the temperature becoming a little bit warmer, actually. So that's why I think the CT will start to tick up a bit over the next few days. So these are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. We're looking at Birmingham today. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Birmingham, starting quite close to, or maybe a little bit cooler than average the next couple of days. But over the weekend into next week, you see the temperature is warming up. It's lifting up a little bit. In terms of the upper air temperatures. It could be associated with quite a lot of cloud and showers, though, so we might not necessarily feel particularly warmer down on the surface, but certainly temperatures will tick up a bit, and we'll probably lose these cold nights that we've been having through this week. In a more extended range, going towards month's end and now even into the opening day of June, maybe hints of a bit of a cooling trend then into the final days of May and the opening days of June. Precipitation-wise, plenty of dry weather for the next couple of days, but gradually turning more showery over the weekend and into next week, possibly hinting at something really quite wet as we get through to the end of May and the beginning of June. I have to say, the end of May, beginning of June is looking a little bit grim there from a temperature and precipitation point of view, but it's very extended range, so obviously it's pretty unreliable. Temperature anomalies from the 16th to 24th of May, close to average really. For northern parts of the country, it's ever so slightly warmer than average. For the rest of us, it's just more or less average. Not a big deviation either way. It looks quite warm over Scandinavia, but other than there, most parts of particularly sort of central western Europe anyway, not too far from average or even a little bit below average. Precipitation anomalies again very close to average. Doesn't look like temperature or precipitation is going to be doing anything all that exciting in the next week. This is how the GFS midnight run was looking earlier on today. So this is for the 19th of May. We've got low pressure across central parts of Europe on Sunday. So low pressure is covering central Europe. We're generally within lowish pressure. We're within a trough. So we will at the very least be generating showers over this weekend. And they could be quite heavy, possibly even a little bit thundery. Into the opening part of next week. So this is Tuesday the 21st of May. Again, we're within a trough of low pressure, so you would expect further showers into the early part of next week. Maybe a little bit of a ridge extending through the country on Wednesday, just killing off the showers for a while through the middle part of next week. But then as we head up towards the end of next week and the late spring bank holiday weekend, possibly just starting to see low pressure beginning to move back in from off the Atlantic. So this is taking us into the bank holiday weekend. This is Saturday 25th of May, and this is actually day 10, Sunday 26th of May, and you'll see low pressure is still quite dominant here. We are trying to build up the Azores high. We're trying to build up this ridge of high pressure from the southwest, but really these areas of low pressure are rolling in over the top, and we do still have quite an appreciable blocking signal up towards Greenland as well, but still forcing down pretty cool air into those troughs of low pressure. So generally looking a bit cool, a bit showery as we go into the late spring bank holiday weekend. That's bank holiday Monday, turning wind into the north, so that's not very good. That's going to be very chilly bank holiday Monday, probably with showers in the north and the east. And then in the more extended range, well, still just looking rather cool and rather unsettled, really. Certainly rather cool, rather showery as we go to the final sort of days of May. And as far as we can go, actually, 384 hours away is the first day of June, and it's looking rather cool, it's looking rather showery as we go into the opening day of meteorological summer 2019. GFS parallel run looks like that again, rather showery over the weekend at about trough of low pressure, and those showery conditions probably continuing into the first part of next week. Into the middle of next week, well, look at all this northern blocking that we've got going on up over Greenland and Iceland. That's real high pressure up there at 1,045 millibars, and so, but it's still forcing down quite cool air from the northeast. There is actually a little trough of low pressure even into the second half of next week across England and Wales. That keeps showery conditions going through much of next week, actually, the parallel run, and the temperatures wouldn't be particularly exciting either. Heading into the late spring bank holiday weekend, that's how we're looking. So still with this intense northern blocking across Greenland and Iceland, really ramping up the block. Again, forcing down quite cool air, particularly to northern and eastern parts of the country, although we have got a little bit of a ridge building there. So that's possibly settling things down slightly as we go into the late spring bank holiday weekend, but not for long, because as we roll out beyond that, we actually start to bring these areas of low pressure in from off the Atlantic. So just beyond the bank holiday weekend, it does turn quite unsettled, wet and windy actually on this parallel GFS run. Not very good signals at all for the very end of May and the beginning of June. ECMWF, rather cool, rather showery conditions over the weekend. These showery conditions continuing into next week. Gradually, we probably lose the shower risk as we get through to the middle of next week. We've got the main sort of trough is moving away towards the eastern side of Europe there by Thursday. More troughs are in the Atlantic though, and of course we've still got this very intense northern blocking sitting up to our north. It looks as though these areas of low pressure, these troughs will probably start to move in from off the Atlantic quite soon after that chart. That's how we look at day 10, which gets us to Sunday the 26th of May. So overall, still looking pretty blocked to say the least. Lots of high pressure still there up towards Greenland. We've got these troughs of low pressure in the Atlantic. Got a desperately unsettled pattern, but it's threatening. It is threatening this to turn very unsettled and very cool and wet. If we start to just pep up the jet stream a little bit more, you're going to find these areas of low pressure in the Atlantic, that one there, and this one over towards Newfoundland. You'll find those areas of low pressure starting to intensify and beginning to roll in under this intense northern blocking signal. As it is, we're just off that. It's not quite that bad, but it's a kind of scenario where we really are sort of chancing our luck, and if we're not careful, we're going to find ourselves going into a very wet, very cool type pattern. Dare I say it, shades of 2012 and 2007. That's the sort of thing that could happen with these very high levels of northern blocking. So let's just wait and see. But certainly, if this goes on, if this northern blocking goes on into June, then we might find ourselves going into a pretty grim weather pattern. But we shall see. We may see a reduction of that northern blocking. Of course, yesterday, whilst we're playing around with the Azores High a little bit, they have backed away from the Azores High, having much of an influence, quite a lot, with today's model runs. So let's just wait and see. These are the options that got on the table within the ECM ensembles for day 10. So this is the 26th of May. It's 240 hours away. So we've got 21 members of the ECM ensembles with a mid-Atlantic ridge. They have high pressure ridging from sort of the southwest of us going up towards Greenland. That's a classic example of mid-Atlantic ridge I was talking about when we looked at the charts of Penn State University. So it's blocking off the Atlantic. It's mainly dry, but it's quite cool. It's bringing the winds in from a north to northwesterly direction. We've got 18 members of the ECM ensembles that have high pressure up towards Greenland and Iceland with a trough of low pressure in the North Sea. So again, that's a cool scenario, but it's a little bit more unsettled as well. It's rather showery with that scenario. And then we've got another 12, including the control and the operational ECM runs that have the high pressure even further to the northwest, really centred over Greenland. And that allows a trough of low pressure to actually be sitting very close to the UK. They are the coolest and most unsettled options within the ECM ensembles, obviously. And that does include the control and the operational run. So it's basically a case of where this high pressure is. How far north and west is the high pressure going to be? The further north and west it goes, the greater the risk that will start to generate a trough of low pressure close to the UK. And if we do that, we could actually finish up with quite a cool and quite an unsettled bank holiday weekend. In 2 weeks' time, that's the wrong chart, in 2 weeks' time, we've got lots of different options on the table. So this is for the 31st of May, the last day of the month. We have 19 members of the ECM ensembles, still with quite a strong block signal up towards Greenland, near normal heights around the UK and in the Atlantic, and some above average heights to our south. Probably still quite unsettled with those. We've got 17 with high pressure to our south and low pressure to the north, so that's bringing in quite a flat westerly sort of flow. 12 with above average heights out to our west, still with that mid-Atlantic ridge, relatively cool winds from the north or northwest. And then 3, a minority option with a very strong blocking signal, but also some high pressure to our east. Low pressure is out to our southwest. At least with those 3, we're probably bringing in quite warm there from a southerly direction. But there's a lot of options on the table in 2 weeks' time, and again, where any ridge is sitting is very much a critical factor as we go through to the start of June. Finally, this is how the Beijing Climate Centre is looking. So these are 500 millibar heights broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us from the 16th to the 25th of May. The coming 10 days are going to have above average heights to our south, above average heights to our north, I should say, below average heights to our south, bringing in an easterly sort of wind with that scenario. The low pressure to the south is threatening to bring showers. So we've got a strong northern blocking signal going on up here. Lots of northern blocking, and with low pressure to the south, we are threatening to move up some showery conditions from the south and from the southwest. That's how the next 10-day period is looking. It's the 26th of May to the 4th of June. Still with the northern blocking around Greenland, low pressure is underneath it, and also to our east. So that looks cool and unsettled, really. We're doing something like that with the flow and with the jet. So that could be quite cool, quite unsettled for the closing days of May and the beginning of June. The next 10-day period is the 5th through to the 14th of June with below average heights in the Atlantic. And again, looking quite unsettled. Bit of a southerly tracking jet stream being hinted at there. And then the next 10-day period doesn't look very good either. This is the 15th to 24th of May. Again, we've got below average heights in the Atlantic, and we just bring in the jet stream rather like that. So unsettled June really on the way if the Beijing Climate Centre is correct. I'm sure if we looked at the CFSV2, and we will do that tomorrow when we do GMA Friday. I'm sure if we looked at the CFSV2, it will be showing a warmer, drier scenario for June, as it often does. So, could be the Beijing Climate Centre is wrong with this, but if it's right, we're looking at quite a cool and quite an unsettled signal for June. But I think the focus at the moment is going to be on the next week to 10 days. We've got high levels of northern blocking being forecast for next week, and as we go into the late spring bank holiday weekend, there are just a few hints that things could start to turn rather more unsettled. Certainly quite cool with northerly winds, but potentially we could find ourselves going into not only quite a cool late spring bank holiday weekend, but also a rather unsettled, dare I say, even quite wet late spring bank holiday weekend. Just a few hints about that at the moment. So we're a long way from a late spring bank holiday weekend. Got plans for that, don't be too concerned yet, but I think we need to keep an eye on it. And we'll be doing that actually with today's second video update. That's going to be having a look at the, it's update number 3 for the late spring bank holiday weekend. And that'll be coming up with you this evening. Right, that's all for now though, and thanks for watching.